Next, we have Edie DeWeese. Historian Edie DeWeese will be talking about Allen's Park, a quaint mountain town established in 1896 at the foot of Long's Peak in the far northwest corner of Boulder County. DeWeese, a fourth-generation Allen's Parker, is retired from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, where she was a technical editor. She will be sharing a glimpse of the Allen's Park her great-grandparents knew in the early 1900s when they first came to spend their summers.
Thank you. Does everybody know where Allen's Park is? There's Allen's Park. Allen's Park is where the little arrow is. It's down behind that mountain, sort of on the flank of Meeker. So this is the view you see every day. And it looks very much like it did 100 years ago. And in fact, this picture was taken more than 100 years ago by Charlie Boynton, who was one of the important photographers of the area. If you were going to Allen's Park back then, you would leave Longmont and go to Lyons, and this would be, instead of Highway 66, you'd be on this. And so the cows would be out there, and who knows who all would be there. In those days, you can see there's one little track on the right that looks like a bicycle track, because it is. That's what they used more often to get there than anything, because it was so much easier to get around the rocks. So you get to Lyons, and that's the way it looked. Just a little town, but mostly it was the railroad that was important, taking all the stone out. And they were just building the schoolhouse. You can see it there, and that's where their museum is now. So you turn left there, and you head up the toll road. And as you can see, the road is on the south side of the river, which it's not anymore. Now it's on the north. And that was the toll house. And if you were on a bike, you had to pay a nickel, which was pretty pricey back then. And that little buggy there would probably have been about 15 or 25 cents, depending on when you did it. It went from the early 1900s or 1890s until about 1910. The Little Narrows is at the bottom of the canyon. You can see how low the road is. Back then, they just found wherever they could find a flat spot and they put the road in. So now that if you go through that area, you can still see the same rock formations, but the road is up about 10 or 15 feet. Then the Big Narrows. The cool thing about this is that is one of the 13 bridges that they had in the canyon, and it does not actually cross the river. There was no place in the Narrows for them to put a road, so they built a bridge on the side of the rock. And all of the loads of ore coming out of the mines and all of the logs coming down came through those little bridges. The Belvigoy, you can still see this along the roadside on the south side of the river. And it was a mine and a mill, and you can see there was a hydroelectric flume that came down from where the South St. Vrain and the Middle St. Vrain meet. And that was to provide their electricity. And it ran well until the 30s. Then as you go on up the road, you get to Riverside. Nowadays, you would go up the hill above that. The new road bypasses it. But Riverside started out as a ranch that was homesteaded. And then they, I think in about 1919, they platted it as a little village. And so there used to be a lodge there and a lot of cottages. But originally, it was a ranch. Then some of you may have been up to Kelly House to the Hilltop Guild Bazaar in the summer. And right next door to it is the Bunt School, which is the earliest school in the area. The Kelly House was owned for a while by this man named Fred Dolly, and he had the Rock Museum and Curiosity Place, but he also had a fox farm behind it that was full of really stinky foxes, so it wasn't very attractive. Alonzo Allen's fireplace is still there. Allen was one of the founders of Longmont, as well as Allen's Park. He came to Allen's Park in 1859, and we're just getting ready to have our 150th anniversary in 2 years, and we're going to have some big stuff. This is the first known photo of the Allen's Park area. That's Meadow Mountain on the left, and then we're going over towards Wild Basin on the right. And so down in here, sorry, I'm not using this very well, down in the sort of top center is where the village of Allen's Park is. The recent issue of the Allen's Park Wind has this photo and a modern one from the same spot. As you go on past that, you're getting down towards Ferncliff. That great big meadow used to be hayed, and it was called Clay's Meadow. And the rock is still there. The old road goes on the west side. The new road is on the east side. And you can see it, and it kind of looks like a turkey. If you look at it closely, his head's on the right. So then from there you would go down the hill into Ferncliff. There's a little buggy down there. There were just a few houses, and you'd go up this, along here, this ravine is where Willow Creek is, and that runs up to Allen's Park. So take a note of the few trees that are there and compare it to the way it is now. This is the reason that everybody went there. When they had the gold rush of 1859, a lot of people were in Gold Hill and Ward, and they decided that if there was gold down there, there must be some farther north. So they started this operation and got a lot of money from Easterners to do it, and it turned out there really wasn't any gold. Somehow they managed to make it look like there was. So this was the village. This is Crystal Springs Hotel. This is the Allen's Park Lodge, and that tall building was the only two-story home. That was the bishop's house called the Yellow Tin House. And in some of the other pictures, you're going to see what Crystal Springs and the Allen's Park Hotel looked like. Now there's another view of Crystal Springs in 1920. And the new road hadn't come through, so everything was really level and even. Now if you go through, there's a big cut, and they actually have a second floor under the part that you see. And the little corner of the Allen's Park Hotel is on the right, and this building in the center is the bathhouse. It was right on Willow Creek. And this is when they were building Crystal Springs, and there was the Allen's Park Hotel. This guy on the left, looking very proud, is George Pfeiffer. He was one of the very first guys in Allen's Park, and he built that hotel and ran it, and then later was the postmaster for a long time. And our first postmaster, Charlie Hirschfeld, he was also a justice of the peace in Lyons. His wife is to the left of him, or to our left, Alice, and then Flossie and Belle. And there's one of the bicycles. They would use those to go down, up and down the canyon. And they said that when the bike's brakes got too hot, they would just throw it in the stream for a while and let it cool off. But he was really interested in music, and you can tell because he's got all of his musical instruments around him. And this was located where the Allen's Park Lodge is now. So if you know the area, you'll see that spot. But he applied for the postmaster job in 1896. So this is what it would look like if you had gone there. The first picture on the left was the way people would camp. There was a big campground south of town. Picture on the right is the park supply store. That's my grandpa standing on the porch because he ran it. The picture down here is the George Mack homestead. He was the guy who homesteaded that area in 1896, and the little Allen's Park Church shortly after it was remodeled. And people, most important, of course, is the lower left picture, my grandparents' wedding. This is the first Edie, my grandma, and my grandpa next to her. Those are the kids from the Allen's Park School. And the Allen's Park investors, the people who were doing the mining, are in the middle, and that is the first school. So what we're trying to do now is save Allen's Park, keep it looking like it did, because it's a lot of fun to go someplace that still looks so much like it was in the early 1900s. That's the cabin that my grandfather built for my grandmother when they got married in 1920, and we're trying to save that from being destroyed. Thank you.